Tell me in one sentence right now, what are you still holding that you were never asked to carry? Type it below. Leave it in the comments. I want to hear that name, that thing, that small sentence you keep folding into your chest like a secret map. I have been watching you, not as a distant clock or a tidy ledger that ticks off deeds and debts. I have been watching you with the stubborn, tender patience of someone who remembers every breath that ever mattered. I have watched you put your hands over cracks and pretend the house is whole. I have watched you smooth the wrinkles you earned in private and walk back into public like the garment fits. I have watched you smile while your lungs were full of stones. You are not a draft to be edited later. You are not raw footage I will cut down to a decent highlight reel. I see the edits you make to yourself. I hear the rehearsal of the face you show the world. I know the lines you learned so no one would have to learn how to carry you. When you think you are unseen, that is when you are closest to me. The rooms where you think the lights are off, those are the rooms I entered first. The minutes you convinced yourself were too small to be worthy of prayer, I folded them like letters and kept them. The confession you whispered under satin and exhaustion, I memorized it. You hold it together sometimes because you believe holding is proof you are enough. You hold it together because you do not want to be the reason someone else collapses. You hold it together because you learned that around you, weakness is a currency used to extract blame. You hold it together because a child is watching, because a parent is depending, because rent is due, because your neighbor expects you to be strong, because you thought strength was a series of flawless, unrevealing breaths. That carved-out idea of strength, I did not give that to you. Somewhere along the way, strength became a lonely architecture you were taught to maintain at all costs. You were taught to patch, to hide, to pretend that if the seams showed, everything would come undone. You were taught to be the dam, and you have been drowning while upstream the river keeps coming. I am not impressed by how little you break. I am moved by how faithfully you try. I am not cataloguing your endurance as a virtue to reward later. I am cataloguing your pain so I can name what needs to be healed. I am counting the nights you held your breath until your ribs ached so I could remember how to rescue you with tenderness, not with judgment. Do you remember the first time you hid a tear because there was no place for it? The first time you swallowed a sentence about yourself because speaking it would make someone else uncomfortable? That silence has weight. That silence has a gravity. And I have been learning the weight of it, cradle by cradle, name by name. I have held the way your shoulders sank when you thought nobody would see you fold. I have held the exact sound of your teeth against a sob. I have held the small miracles you call coincidence. The friend who called at the right time, the song that landed like a hand on your shoulder, the bus that was late so you could be late to your own despair. Those were not accidents. Those were soft interventions I made because loud rescues often come with collateral damage. There is a truth you are not taught. To be held is not shameful. To need is not failure. To fall is not the end of the sentence. It is a comma in a paragraph I am still writing with you. You think the world will mark you down if you place your weight back where it belongs, but I will never penalize the honest placing of pain into my hands. I will never measure you by how small you make your cries. There is no scoreboard here. There is only a long, impossible patience that stays when everything else walks away. You have been generous in ways that cost you. You have given up rest so that others could dream. You have made sacrifices so that those you love would not know the temperature of your own fear. That generosity has a name. It is sacred. But generosity was never meant to be self-erasure. There is a difference between giving yourself away and offering yourself. Offer me yourself, your cracked parts, your unfinished sentences, the parts that smell like the grocery bags you forgot to unpack. Offer them to me. Let me not only see them but carry them for a while. Lean, not as a lesson in martyrdom, but as a real, soft, immediate leaning. Put the weight where it belongs. Let rooms you thought empty become crowded with presence. Let the prayer you hide in the middle of the night be heard in the middle of the day. Speak the one-sentence confession into the comments below. Name the thing. Say the name of the bruise. Tell someone that you are tired. Watch what returns to you when you stop pretending that you are not. I will not take from you everything that makes you who you are. I do not want to erase the stories that taught you survival. I want to rearrange them so survival is not the only verse you sing. I want to open a window where you have been living behind a boarded one. I want to teach you how to sleep without plotting the next morning's armor. If you are afraid to be seen, begin with a whisper. If you are afraid that saying your need will make you small, remember, it was never my measure. If you are afraid that asking for help will make you less than, know this, here, asking is an act of authority. Asking is how humans enter the conversation with the divine. Tell me one small thing, type it. A single sentence. I have been watching you hold it together. I have been watching the places you put duct tape over a heart. I have been watching the parts you clip like coupons and save for a rainy day that never comes. I have been watching. And because there is always a next breath, I am ready to hold what you cannot hold anymore. You always thought I wasn't there, didn't you? Those nights when the clock slowed to a crawl, when your ceiling turned into a screen for every mistake you'd ever made. The nights when silence didn't feel holy, it felt like punishment. You stared into the dark and thought, if God was real, I'd feel something by now. You whispered to the air and got nothing but the hum of your own pulse answering back. You mistook that silence for absence, but I was there. Not always to move mountains, not always to part seas. Sometimes just to sit beside the noise in your chest until it softened into breath again. I watched you count the hours until morning, bargaining with exhaustion. I saw the light from your phone wash over your face as you scrolled through other people's laughter, trying to borrow a little bit of their life for yourself. I saw the messages you wrote and deleted because you didn't want anyone to know you were that lonely. I saw how you kept your sobs quiet, not because you wanted to be brave, but because walls have ears, and you were tired of explaining pain to people who only listen long enough to give advice. You told yourself I wasn't there because I didn't intervene. You thought divinity should look like rescue, a hand through the fire, a sudden healing, a miraculous deposit of peace. But my presence isn't always rescue. Sometimes it's witness. Sometimes it's endurance. Sometimes it's the unexplainable reason you got up the next day when you swore you wouldn't. That was me, hiding in the ordinary, keeping your pulse steady when your mind wanted to stop. I sat with you in the car after the argument, when you kept both hands on the steering wheel because you didn't trust them to be gentle. I stood by your bed when you said, I can't do this anymore. And I didn't interrupt because I knew you needed to hear your own voice say it. I watched you let go of a friendship that once felt like home. I saw you delete photos, not out of anger, but because the memories had started to rot. I saw you lose faith in almost everything except the rhythm of your breathing, and even that you questioned. What you didn't know is that silence is where I live. I don't speak over your chaos, I wait inside it. I don't break the noise, I breathe beneath it. Every quiet minute you thought was wasted was actually a dialogue. You exhaling grief, me inhaling it so you wouldn't drown. I was the calm you thought was emptiness, the small pause between sobs where the pain forgot its name. I was the way you fell asleep finally, not because it was over, but because you stopped fighting the night long enough to let me carry the next hour. There were moments you cursed me. You thought I turned away. You thought, if you're watching, then why won't you do something? And I did, but not the kind of something that makes good stories. I steadied the hands you were ready to harm yourself with. I delayed the text that would have burned every bridge. I sent the memory of your childhood laugh through your head at the exact second you were about to break beyond repair. You called them coincidences. I called them the art of subtle mercy. You see, I've learned not to shout when the world is already screaming. The loudest thing I can do sometimes is stay still, unmoving, unblinking, while you rage and shake and cry. The storm eventually sees me there and loses interest. That's how I protect you, by outlasting what tries to kill you. You don't have to notice me for me to work. You don't have to thank me for me to remain. My love is not a contract. It's weather always surrounding you, whether you acknowledge it or not. And so when you wake up tomorrow and your first thought is, I can't do another day, understand this. I've already prepared that day's small mercies. The laugh you will hear when you least expect it. The stranger who holds the door a little longer than necessary. The taste of coffee that reminds you of something safe. These are not random. They are the fingerprints I leave in the fabric of the day, so you know I haven't gone anywhere. So the next time the night swallows you whole and the silence feels like proof that I have abandoned you, remember this. I do some of my best work in the dark, not because I enjoy your pain, but because darkness is where truth glows brightest. I was there when you screamed into your pillow. I was there when you whispered that you couldn't see the point. I was there, counting every tear not to keep score, but to know exactly how much to replace. You will not always feel me, but you will always survive me. And that, child, is how you'll know I was never gone. You started carrying things that were never meant for your hands. It began quietly, the way all inheritances of pain begin. Someone you loved broke in front of you, and you thought the only way to love them was to pick up their pieces and wear them like armor. Someone told you that being strong meant never asking for help, and you believed them. You started collecting weights disguised as duty, a parent's regret, a partner's anger, a friend's silence, a culture's expectations. You told yourself it was noble. You told yourself you could handle it, but you were never meant to be the pack mule for everyone else's fears. That was not the covenant I made with you. I gave you empathy, not obligation. I gave you compassion, not martyrdom. Somewhere along the way, those got twisted together until love became a ledger and kindness a transaction. You kept giving from a well that was never refilled, and every time you collapsed, you blamed yourself for being tired. I watched you carry what generations before you refused to face. You took your father's shame and called it perseverance. You took your mother's silence and called it grace. You took your friend's chaos and called it loyalty. I saw you flinch at every raised voice, every unhealed wound that wasn't yours, and yet you still volunteered to be the healer. I wanted to tell you, you can't fix what someone else refuses to open. I wanted to whisper, sometimes love is stepping back, not stepping in. But I waited, because lessons spoken too early are wasted on hearts still bleeding. You weren't designed to be everyone's safe place while having none for yourself. You weren't designed to hold grief until it molds your joy. I did not place the universe in your hands, only your life, your path, your own sacred flame. You keep trying to play God to other people's storms, not realizing you're standing in the rain without shelter. You think that letting go is failure, but letting go is actually faith. Faith that I will take what you can't carry and finish the healing you tried to start. Do you remember when you first learned to say, I'm fine, while your lungs were filling with smoke? It was supposed to be survival, not a lifestyle. You've mistaken endurance for purpose. The world claps for those who never break, but I weep for them because they've learned to call numbness peace. You were not built to be stoic. You were built to be alive. And alive things feel, ache, tremble, and sometimes crumble. That's not weakness. That's proof of life. You've been taught that love is proven by how much pain you can absorb. That's a lie. Love isn't the bruise you hide to protect someone else's reputation. Love isn't saying yes when your spirit screams no. Love isn't carrying someone's chaos until it becomes your identity. The weight you're breaking under isn't holy, it's misdirected compassion. You can set it down without losing your goodness. You can rest without being selfish. You can heal without needing anyone's permission. You keep asking me why I haven't lifted the burden, and I keep waiting for you to hand it to me. You grip it tighter because you think surrender is weakness. But what if surrender is the beginning of strength? What if putting it down is how you finally find out who you are without all that borrowed gravity? Look at your hands for a moment. Truly look. Notice the tension in your fingers, the way they curl even when you rest. That's how long you've been bracing for impact. Now imagine those same hands open, empty, trembling maybe, but light. That's the image I hold of you, not the weary carrier, the freed one, the one who trusts me enough to walk without the armor of everyone else's suffering. The world won't tell you to release it. The world rewards exhaustion. It praises those who bleed quietly and call it resilience. But I am not the world. I do not grade your worth by how much you endure. I measure it by how honestly you live. And honesty sometimes means saying, this isn't mine to hold. So tonight, lay down the burdens that don't belong to you. Write their names if you have to, the expectations, the guilt, the people you keep rescuing. Hand them over one by one. Let me carry what's breaking you. That's what I've been waiting for, not your perfection, not your performance, but your permission. You were never asked to be the hero of every story. You were only asked to be honest in your own. Let the others find their way home. You just rest. You've become so good at pretending that sometimes even I have to look twice. You wake up, put on your voice, your face, your practiced ease, and the world applauds. You smile in the photos, make the small jokes, keep the rhythm of conversation alive, as though your chest isn't caving in behind your ribs. When people ask how you're doing, you answer with a phrase that fits into a polite silence. You've made "I'm fine" sound almost convincing. You've learned to disguise pain as competence, exhaustion as discipline, emptiness as maturity. But I've watched the in-between moments. When the door closes and the applause fades. When you take the long route home just to have a few more minutes where nobody expects you to sparkle. When you sit in the shower too long because it's the only place the noise sounds like water instead of memory. I've seen you crumble quietly, not in catastrophe, but in small, untraceable ways. A breath you don't finish, a message you don't send, a prayer you can't quite shape. You think the act of pretending keeps you safe, that the world will unravel if you drop the mask. Somewhere along the way, survival and performance fused. You learned that vulnerability makes people uncomfortable, that your softness makes others shift in their seats. So you became a translation of yourself, easy to understand, easier to consume. You turned your heart into a brand and your truth into customer service. You made yourself smaller, quieter, cleaner. And I, who made you vast, watched you fold yourself down to a version the world could manage. You don't have to perform for me. You don't have to curate your pain before I'll touch it. You don't need to sound poetic for me to listen. I'm not moved by eloquence. I am moved by truth. I know the face you show the world isn't the same one that prays in the dark. I've held both. I love both. But one of them is heavy, and I never asked you to keep carrying it. I see the way you joke about the things that once broke you, how you call your scars lessons, just to make the room comfortable. I see you minimize your own suffering, because someone always has it worse. I see you edit your emotions down to bullet points so you won't seem dramatic. But child, healing isn't a competition. You don't have to win the pain Olympics to earn my comfort. The ache in your chest is enough. The quiet loneliness that follows you through a crowded room is enough. You are enough, even unfiltered, unpracticed, undone. Do you know why pretending feels so exhausting? Because it requires you to live divided. A mask over the soul doesn't just hide, it suffocates. The body remembers the truth it's told to forget. That's why you feel tired all the time. Your spirit is dragging your disguise around, begging for air. Sometimes you tell yourself the mask protects others, that if you show your real hurt, they won't know what to do with it. But hiding your truth doesn't protect them. It deprives them of the chance to meet the real you. The one I crafted with fingerprints and mistakes and laughter that doesn't always have to make sense. The one who doesn't need a script to belong. You have been taught that the only acceptable face is the composed one. But I remember the face you had before you learned control, eyes wild with wonder, voice raw with honesty. You still have that face. It's buried under layers of survival, but it's there. It's the one I see every time you cry and then apologize for it. It's the one I see when you laugh too hard and forget to hide it. It's the one I fell in love with before you had a name. Take off the mask, even if it feels strange at first. You don't have to do it all at once. Maybe start small, a sigh you don't swallow, a tear you don't wipe away too quickly, a no that you actually mean. Let yourself be seen in pieces. I can work with pieces. You think I need your strength to reach you, but I've always preferred your honesty. You were never meant to be admired. You were meant to be known. You were never meant to be flawless. You were meant to be free. You were never meant to perform your pain into poetry for others. You were meant to feel it until it turns back into peace. So tonight, if you find yourself rehearsing how to be okay again, stop. You don't need to be okay to be mine. You just need to be real. Let the mask fall. Let the world misunderstand for a moment. I'll understand. I always have. I remember the night you almost gave up. The air was still, too still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The room around you looked normal: walls, a bed, a chair, but it felt like a cave. You stared at the floor for so long that time stopped meaning anything. Everything inside you had gone quiet, like the sea before it breaks. You weren't angry anymore, not even sad. You were empty in that sharp, sterile way that only comes after a long, slow unraveling. You thought you were done, and I was there. Not as thunder or vision or voice, just presence, unseen, patient, close enough to feel your next inhale, waiting. I knew you didn't want speeches. You didn't want sermons or promises. You wanted one reason not to disappear. You wanted the pain to mean something. When you looked up, you didn't see me. You saw the edge of a table, the soft blue of a phone screen, the ordinary stillness of the world carrying on. But it was me who kept the pulse steady in your wrist. It was me who turned the smallest, dumbest thought, maybe I'll wait one more minute, into an act of rebellion against despair. It was me whispering through the quiet, you are not finished yet. I watched you test that whisper. You sat up, stared into the dark and said, "Why?" Not loudly, not even expecting an answer. Just the question itself, cracked and trembling. And in that word was the seed of return. You think faith is a roar, but sometimes it's just that single syllable muttered through gritted teeth. I didn't rush to fix it. I didn't erase the ache, because the ache was part of your becoming. Pain is not proof of absence. It's evidence that you're still reaching toward life. You didn't know it then, but every second you stayed was a victory measured in quiet breaths. Do you remember what came next? The sound, a message tone, a song, the neighbor's dog. I don't even need to remind you which. It was small. It didn't solve anything, but it pulled you back an inch from the edge. That's how I work when you can't see me. Small mercies, soft interruptions. A rhythm that keeps you tethered when logic tells you to let go. You think miracles look like parted seas, but they often look like a heartbeat that refuses to quit. A tear that falls and somehow, impossibly, leads to another breath. The next morning, when the light came through your window and you hated that it came at all, I was in that light. Not to mock you with hope, but to remind you that light still exists even when you're not ready to feel it. You cursed me then. You said I didn't care. You said I was cruel for keeping you alive just to hurt again. I didn't argue. I can bear your anger. It's part of love. What mattered was that you spoke to me. Even in rage, you acknowledged the connection. That's the thing about despair, it thinks it's alone, but even its cry proves company. Later that day, you laughed. Not much, not loud, maybe at something stupid online. But you laughed. And in that sound, faint and tired, I felt the first heartbeat of resurrection. Not the grand kind sung about in holy books, the human kind. The one that happens in kitchens, on sidewalks, in texts that just say you okay. The one that doesn't erase the past, but proves the future can still arrive. You thought you survived because you were strong, but strength wasn't what saved you, softness did. The fragile, stubborn flicker inside you that refused to let go of beauty completely. The same softness you keep trying to hide is what keeps bringing you back to life. That night, I didn't save you by storm. I saved you by staying still. I kept watch. I waited until your exhaustion turned into sleep instead of ending. I placed dreams in your mind that reminded you of color. I set tomorrow gently into your path so you could trip into it without meaning to. And now, when you look back, I know you still can't explain why you're here. Why, of all the nights that could have been your last, that one wasn't. I'll tell you why. Because I'm not done showing you how much light a single, tired soul can hold. You don't owe me perfection for that. You don't even owe me gratitude. All I ask is that you keep choosing life in the smallest ways possible. Step outside. Let the air touch your skin. Let music find your ears. Let your heart keep its rhythm, even if you don't yet know the song. You almost gave up. I didn't let you. And one day you'll understand, not because I'll explain it, but because you'll feel it. The weight of despair finally lifting, the moment your heart starts beating not just to survive, but to love again. Strength isn't what you think it is. You've been taught that strength means never falling apart, that the strongest ones are the ones who keep going no matter what. You've built your life around that lie, patching yourself with grit and caffeine, pretending exhaustion is endurance. You've learned to hold your breath when life tightens its grip, because somewhere you heard that breathing is a luxury for people who haven't been through hell. You tell yourself you're strong because you don't cry. You tell yourself you're strong because you don't ask for help. But I didn't create you to be a wall, I created you to be a heart. You've mistaken hardness for strength. You've mistaken silence for wisdom. You've mistaken numbness for peace. But the truth is, real strength has always been softness that survived the fire. It's the courage to stay open when closing would be easier. It's saying, I'm tired, and not apologizing for it. It's laying down your armor and trusting that love won't kill you this time. The world tells you to stay strong because it doesn't know what to do with your tears. It's uncomfortable with your breaking. It wants you tidy, inspirational, marketable, but I don't. I want you real. I want your messy, trembling prayers. I want the parts you think disqualify you from holiness. The shaking hands, the breaking voice, the I don't know how to do this anymore honesty. That's where I live, not in your perfection, but in your persistence. Strength is not found in holding it all together. It's found in knowing when to let go. You keep thinking you need to be in control, but control is just fear wearing a business suit. You try to plan your way out of pain, but pain isn't a problem to solve, it's a teacher. It doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to show you where you stopped trusting me. Every time you loosen your grip, the world doesn't fall apart. It falls into place. I know you've spent years believing that if you stop carrying everything, it will all collapse. But let me tell you a secret. It's already collapsing. That's why you're tired. That's why no matter how much you achieve, there's a hum of emptiness behind it. Because you're living like the entire universe depends on your stamina. It doesn't. You're holding doors I already closed. You're guarding walls I never asked you to build. When I made you, I didn't write invincible into your design. I wrote beloved. I wrote breath. I wrote child. Even I rested after creating the world, and yet you think you're weak for needing a break. You've made idols out of productivity and self-sufficiency, and they're devouring your peace. What if you stopped worshipping strength and started practicing surrender? What if you believed that being held is also a form of victory? You think letting go means giving up, but letting go means handing it over. It means trusting me enough to step back. You don't have to fix every wound, predict every future, hold every person. Your strength is not in your grip, it's in your release. You were never meant to be your own savior. That's why I exist. That's why grace exists. To catch what your hands can't carry anymore. True strength doesn't shout, it breathes. It doesn't conquer, it endures. It doesn't demand to be noticed, it simply refuses to disappear. The strongest ones are not the ones who never fall, they're the ones who know how to rise without pretending the fall didn't happen. You, who have mistaken surviving for living, listen. You're allowed to fall apart. You're allowed to need. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to ask for something without earning it. That's not weakness, that's worship. When you finally stop forcing yourself to be unbreakable, you'll realize you were never supposed to be steel, you were supposed to be light. Light bends, light flickers, light travels through cracks, and yet it always reaches its destination. So breathe, child, unclench your fists, stop editing your pain into something noble. Let the tears fall and call it strength. Let the world misunderstand, they always do. I didn't make you to impress them. I made you to illuminate them, not with perfection, but with presence. Because the truth about strength is this. It's not what holds the world together. It's what lets the world fall apart and still dares to believe it can be beautiful again. You think you've been walking through endings, but what you've really been walking through is preparation. Renewal doesn't arrive like thunder. It arrives like breath. It doesn't knock loudly, it whispers. You've been mistaking quiet for emptiness, stillness for failure, and pauses for punishment. But what if this stillness isn't absence? What if it's resurrection in slow motion? I know you feel like too much has been lost to start again. You keep replaying the scenes you wish you'd done differently, the words you can't take back, the people you couldn't keep, the years that seem wasted. But child, nothing is wasted in my hands. The ruins you keep staring at are not your grave, they're your foundation. Every collapse was construction you didn't understand yet. You weren't being buried, you were being planted. Renewal doesn't mean becoming someone new. It means remembering who you were before the world convinced you to forget. I made you whole, not perfect. There's a difference. Perfection is brittle, it cracks under pressure. Wholeness bends, it grows, it forgives itself. And that's where I'm leading you now, into a life that bends with grace instead of breaking from expectation. Do you know what I've been waiting for? Not your strength, not your spotless faith. I've been waiting for your surrender. I've been waiting for that quiet moment where you finally stop fighting everything, even me, and just say, I'm tired. Because that's when the rebuilding begins. Renewal isn't powered by willpower, it's powered by release. It starts when you stop pretending you're still in control of the ruins and finally let me breathe through them. You've been asking me to restore what was lost, but I can't resurrect what you keep clutching. You can't receive what's new if your hands are full of what's gone. Sometimes the miracle isn't me giving it back, it's me giving you peace without it. Sometimes the healing isn't the return, it's the relief of no longer needing it. That's how I set you free. Not by rewriting the story, but by showing you that the ending wasn't the end. There will come a morning soon, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not the next, when you'll wake up and something will feel different. You won't know why. The light will look a little kinder. The air will taste a little cleaner. The thoughts that used to hurt will start to feel like memories instead of monsters. That's renewal. It's not dramatic, it's subtle. It doesn't shout, it hums. You'll realize you've been healing all along. In moments too small for anyone to see, every deep breath, every small laugh, every time you got up even when no one noticed. I know you think you're too late, too broken, too far gone, but you're not. You're right on time. You are the living proof that grace doesn't expire. You are the evidence that light still finds cracks. You are the continuation of every soul who thought they'd reached their last page and still turned one more. Renewal isn't about forgetting what hurt you. It's about letting the pain take its proper shape, not a chain, but a teacher. It's about learning to bless the moments that didn't make sense because they brought you here to this new becoming. You don't have to force it. You don't have to know what comes next. All you have to do is stay open. So let this be the season you stop expecting restoration to look like the past. Let this be the season you stop asking for what was and start making room for what is. Let this be the moment you unclench your fists, lift your eyes, and realize that what felt like an ending was me making space for something unbreakable to grow. You are not starting over from nothing. You are starting over from wisdom. And that is the most sacred kind of beginning. You've been listening for me in all the wrong places. You kept waiting for the sky to split, for the ground to shake, for a miracle loud enough to drown out your doubts. But that's not how I move. The voice you've been waiting for isn't coming from above you. It's been speaking through you, quietly, constantly, like breath. You think I stopped talking? I never did. I just stopped competing with your noise. Do you remember the last time you felt peace for no reason? That was me. Do you remember the moment you chose kindness when you could have chosen revenge? That was me. Do you remember when you laughed in the middle of a storm that hadn't yet passed? That, too, was me. You keep searching for me in sermons and signs, in other people's certainty. But I live in subtler places. The warmth in your chest when you tell the truth, the ache in your heart when you see beauty, the trembling quiet after you've finally said enough. I never left. You just built walls out of logic and pain and called them protection. But my voice is patient. It knows how to wait. I have been standing just outside your fear, whispering your name until you remember it means something. Every time you've been tempted to give up, that whisper was what stopped you. Every time you thought you were broken beyond repair, that whisper was what said, no, not yet. I've been in your pauses, not your performances. I've been in the in-between, not in the achievements you think I require. I've been in the moments that didn't make sense, quietly translating your chaos into meaning. You thought hearing me would sound holy, but I sound like whatever you need most. I sound like mercy when you're drowning in guilt. I sound like conviction when you're running from your truth. I sound like stillness when the world is too loud. I sound like laughter when grief tries to swallow you whole. You don't have to strain your ears to find me. You just have to stop arguing with silence. The stillness you fear is not emptiness. It's where I speak loudest. You can't hear me when you're sprinting. You hear me when you finally stop, when you unclench your fists, when you let your shoulders drop, when you admit that maybe, just maybe, you don't have to be the strong one all the time. I have never hidden myself from you. I've only spoken in languages you weren't taught to honor: intuition, softness, surrender. The world taught you that only the dramatic is divine, that if the heavens didn't open, it wasn't real. But I've been here all along, in the smallest movements of your life, in the way the sunlight finds your face even on your worst days. You are not disconnected from me. You've just forgotten how to listen. Stop waiting for me to arrive. I never left. Stop asking me to speak. I already am. The proof is in your pulse, steady, rhythmic, faithful. It's the same pulse that echoed through creation when I said, "Let there be light." So breathe and hear it. Every inhale, I am here. Every exhale, so are you. That's the conversation we've been having since the beginning of time. You don't need holy words to join it. You only need to remember that the silence you fear is actually me, reminding you, gently, endlessly, that you were never alone, that you never will be, and that my voice never stopped calling you home. You've always looked for me in the fire. You wanted me to arrive in spectacle, a blaze that would make everything make sense again, a miracle big enough to erase all doubt. You prayed for a flash of certainty, a voice from the clouds, a transformation so sudden it would leave no room for questioning. But I rarely come that way. Fire is loud. Fire impresses. Fire disappears. I prefer the whisper that stays. When I first spoke to the world, it wasn't to dazzle it, it was to awaken it. That's still how I move through you. You mistake silence for distance, but I speak in the language of endurance. I don't always fix the storm. I give you the ability to walk through it without losing yourself. That's the whisper. The one that says, keep moving, keep breathing, keep becoming. There are two kinds of fire, and you've known them both. There's the kind that destroys, the heartbreaks, the betrayals, the nights that burned everything you trusted. And then there's the kind that purifies, the moments that hurt but leave you cleaner, truer, more awake. You can't always tell them apart while they're burning, but I can. And that's why I let some fires stay longer than you'd like. Not because I enjoy your pain, but because I see what it's clearing away. You call it chaos, I call it refinement. You call it loss, I call it space. Every time something left, it made room for something that was meant to arrive. But the whisper is easy to miss. It doesn't announce itself. It's the small relief after crying. It's the sudden understanding that you didn't need to win the argument. It's the moment you stop rehearsing your pain and start learning from it. Do you know why I whisper? Because you have to come closer to hear me. That closeness, that leaning in, is where transformation begins. I could shout over the world if I wanted to, but shouting changes nothing. Whispering changes everything. It invites intimacy. It requires stillness. It means you and I must occupy the same quiet space. When you sit in your car with your hands on the steering wheel, engine off, not ready to move, that's where I whisper. When you stand in front of the mirror, eyes swollen from crying, trying to convince yourself you're okay, that's where I whisper. When you hold your phone waiting for a message that never comes, feeling invisible, that's where I whisper. My words don't need sound, they travel through ache. You ask why I didn't stop the pain, but you don't see what pain stopped in you, the pretending, the chasing, the living for everyone else. Pain ended things that needed to end so something truer could begin. The fire stripped away what couldn't survive the next version of you. The whisper is me saying you survived it, now let it go. You have learned to fear both silence and heat, but those are my tools. Fire reshapes, silence restores. One clears the path, the other fills it with peace. Between them I rebuild you. Between them you remember what it means to trust without proof. When you finally stop running from the flames, you'll notice something. The fire you thought would destroy you has started to glow inside you instead. That's me. I turned the external burning into internal light. The whisper fans it, the world will see it. That's how I've always worked, turning the fire that was meant to consume you into the fire that will guide others home. So the next time life burns down another plan, don't panic. Lean in. Listen. If you can hear even the faintest hum beneath the crackle, that's me again. Not shouting, not saving in the way you imagined. Just reminding you, you were never lost in the fire. You became the light inside it. There's one last thing I need you to know. You've spent so much of your life thinking you had to earn my love, that if you prayed enough, performed enough, proved enough, I'd stay. But I never asked for any of that. You were mine before you ever knew how to call my name. You were loved before you ever did a single thing worth praising. My love isn't a wage, it's oxygen. You don't earn it, you breathe it. You keep asking what your purpose is, as if it's some distant prize hidden at the end of the road. But purpose isn't a destination. It's the quiet way you choose love in a world that keeps asking for something louder. It's how you stay gentle when you could be cruel. It's how you tell the truth even when it costs you. It's how you keep showing up to a life that hasn't always been kind. That's purpose, not a title, not a role, but a rhythm. The rhythm of someone who refuses to stop believing in light. You think I've been testing you? I haven't. I've been teaching you how to see yourself the way I do. Every heartbreak was a mirror, every delay a redirection, every silence a seed. You call it suffering, I call it sculpting. Every time you thought you were breaking, I was shaping. Every time something left, I carved a little more room for grace. And I know you're tired. You're tired of healing, tired of learning the hard way, tired of holding on to faith that feels thin. But listen closely, even tired faith counts. Even small belief moves mountains. Even if all you can say is help, I hear it as a hymn. You don't need perfect words for me to understand your heart. The sound of your breath is enough. The will to try again is enough. You keep thinking I need more from you, but what I've wanted all along is for you to finally rest, to stop auditioning for a love that's already yours, to stop fighting for forgiveness that's already been given. You don't need to climb your way to me, I came down to you. I always do. Every time you laugh again, every time you let someone love you, every time you forgive yourself, that's me walking beside you, whispering, see. You made it through. And maybe that's the point of it all, not to become flawless, but to become free. To stop running from who you are and start remembering why I made you this way. You are not behind. You are not broken beyond repair. You are becoming, even now, even here. One day you'll look back at this version of yourself, the one who thought it was over, the one who nearly gave up, and you'll thank them. Because they kept walking long enough to reach this moment. They kept the ember alive long enough for me to turn it into flame. So here's what I want you to hold on to as the last light fades. You have nothing to prove. You have nowhere to run. You have nothing left to lose except the belief that you're unworthy of love. You're allowed to rest now. You're allowed to begin again. You're allowed to believe that joy is coming, not as a reward, but as your birthright. And when the night feels endless again, remember this, I am still here. Not watching from afar, but breathing within you. Not waiting for you to call, but speaking through your quiet. Not as a god to fear, but as love itself, learning how to be known through you. You are the living proof that grace wins. You are the story I never stopped writing. And I, who have been watching you hold it together for so long, am finally saying, you can let go now. Because I've got you. And I'm not letting go. You don't realize it yet, but this moment, this breath, this reading, is the beginning of something sacred. You've reached the part of the story where you stop looking backward for clues and start realizing that the future isn't waiting somewhere far away. It's already unfolding beneath your feet. You've spent years asking me to show you what comes next, and I have, but not in visions or maps. I've been showing you in small ways, in the ache that tells you what matters, in the peace that settles when you're finally aligned with truth. You keep calling it confusion, but it's direction, learning how to speak in your own language. You think you've been wandering, but you've actually been circling back to yourself. Every detour, every heartbreak, every closed door, it wasn't punishment. It was navigation. You were never lost, child. You were just becoming impossible to misplace. You've measured your growth by outcomes, by achievements, by who stayed and who didn't. But growth is quieter than that. Growth happens in the moments no one claps for, the way you breathe through panic instead of running, the way you forgive without being asked, the way you don't shrink when love finally shows up. You call that maturity. I call that healing. You've carried the idea that healing means feeling good all the time, but no. Healing means being real all the time. It's the courage to stop numbing yourself when the truth stings. It's the willingness to stay open even when you're scared of being hurt again. It's the grace to see your scars not as symbols of survival, but as invitations to deeper living. I never wanted perfection from you. I wanted participation. I wanted you to stop spectating your own life and start inhabiting it. To understand that holiness isn't somewhere you arrive at. It's something you practice in how you love, how you listen, how you stay kind in a world that profits off cruelty. You've been waiting for a sign that you're finally doing enough. Here it is. You're still here. That's enough. Not thriving, not glowing, not certain, just here. Still choosing to get up. Still choosing to try. Still choosing to believe that it's possible to be loved in your unfinished state. The truth is, I've been less interested in your success and more interested in your sincerity. When you stopped chasing applause and started chasing peace, that's when I smiled. When you finally let the tears come without editing them, that's when heaven took notice. When you forgave yourself, not because you earned it, but because you needed it, that's when eternity shifted. You think I dwell in temples and stars, but I dwell in your quiet acts of courage. Every time you choose to stay gentle when you could be cruel, I am there. Every time you choose to rest when your worth feels like it's shrinking, I am there. Every time you choose to start again after failing, I am there. Do you know what I see when I look at you now? I see someone who's learning to live without pretending. Someone who's starting to understand that faith isn't certainty, it's continuation. Someone who's realizing that my love was never the reward for a clean story. It was the reason you survived the messy one. You've asked me for signs of the end, but this is not the end. It's the breath before creation speaks again. The moment between what was and what will be. The pause where I whisper, don't stop now, you're almost ready to live without fear. So if you remember nothing else from everything I've said, remember this. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are the echo of a promise still unfolding. And the same hands that built the stars are still holding you steady, still believing in your next step, still whispering into the fire and the silence alike. There will come a day when you finally stop looking for me in the distance. When you'll realize I was never hiding, never waiting to be found, never lost. You'll see that I was always here, in the curve of your laughter, in the way your chest rises when you breathe, in the quiet thought that said, don't give up even when you wanted to. That day will not come with trumpets or miracles. It will arrive gently, like light through an old window, finding you right where you are, without fanfare, without perfection. You've carried the idea that I live somewhere unreachable, somewhere above pain, untouched by it. But I've lived in your pain all along. Every heartbreak has been an altar where I sat with you. Every tear has been a prayer you didn't know how to form. You kept waiting for heaven to open, but heaven has been spilling through you this entire time. You think revelation comes as knowledge. It doesn't. It comes as recognition. The moment you stop searching for me and realize I've been speaking your language this whole time, not in scripture or thunder, but in the ordinary. The way your body insists on healing, the way the morning always comes back, the way love still finds you despite everything that's gone wrong. The truth is, I've never needed your worship. I've only wanted your awareness. I've only wanted you to wake up and remember that the space between you and heaven is paper thin, just one breath. One act of kindness, one moment of honesty away. You feared me as judge, but I am not the punishment, I am the pulse. I am not the fire that consumes, I am the warmth that remains after. You thought holiness was distance, but it's actually intimacy. It's me walking barefoot through your grief, unashamed to be near your wounds. So when you stand at the end of another long night and wonder if I'm still here, listen closely. The world will be very still, and then, there, between the heartbeat and the breath, you'll hear it. A rhythm older than fear, steady as creation itself, whispering, I am here. I am not leaving. I am not waiting for you to be better before I love you. And that is the truth I've been leading you toward all along, not that I am above you, but that I am within you, that you were never chasing me, you were carrying me. And maybe that's what salvation has always meant. To finally stop running, to stand still long enough to recognize the divine in your own reflection, and to whisper back, softly, like an echo finally finding its source. I see you too. There's something you still don't believe, and I need you to hear it now. You think the story is over once you've healed. You think the finish line of faith is peace. But peace isn't the end, child. It's the beginning of becoming who you were always meant to be. Healing wasn't supposed to make you smaller, safer, quieter. Healing was supposed to make you braver. It was supposed to give you the strength to live out loud, to love recklessly again, to stop surviving and start creating. You keep thinking I saved you so you could rest forever. No, I saved you so you could live, fully, wildly, without apology. I didn't patch up your wounds just to have you build new walls around them. I didn't pull you from the fire so you could sit by the ashes afraid to move. I didn't rebuild your heart so you could protect it from ever being broken again. I rebuilt it so you could use it, for joy, for love, for the kind of life that burns bright enough to warm others who are still in the cold. You've misunderstood holiness. It isn't purity, it's participation. It's showing up. It's saying yes when fear tells you to wait. It's loving again after betrayal. It's opening your hand when you've lost enough to want to close it forever. You don't have to hide behind your healing. Healing is not armor, it's invitation. An invitation to live unguarded, to live grateful, to live true. You keep praying for purpose like it's something I hide behind the clouds. But purpose has been stitched into every day you've survived. It's in the way you look at strangers and see yourself in their pain. It's in the way you offer comfort without needing to be thanked. It's in the way you keep showing up to love people who might never understand the cost of that love. That's purpose, not fame, not certainty, not perfection, just presence. You think you've disappointed me with your doubts, but doubts are the proof that your faith is alive. Dead things don't wrestle. I never asked you to be sure, I asked you to stay open. You've been told faith is a straight line, but it's not. It's a spiral. Sometimes you circle back, sometimes you fall apart, but every time you end up deeper in me. That's the design. I know you wonder why I let you break, but brokenness is how light gets inside a heart that's forgotten how to glow. You've asked me to take the pain away, but pain was never the enemy. Pain was the threshold. It was the place where you stopped pretending to be invincible and started becoming real. It was the moment you discovered that you were never meant to carry everything, only to trust the one who could. And now you're here, standing in the aftermath of everything you thought would destroy you. Look at yourself. You are breathing. You are aware. You are still capable of love. Do you realize how extraordinary that is? You have walked through fire and come out luminous. You've been emptied and yet you're overflowing. That's not luck. That's resurrection disguised as survival. So now this is what I ask of you. Don't shrink back into the shadows. Don't waste your healing on silence. Tell your story. Tell it raw. Tell it wrong if you have to. Tell it while you're still shaking. Because someone out there is standing where you once stood, thinking there's no way through. And your voice, your imperfect, trembling voice, will be the map they need to find me. That's what it's all been for, not perfection, not performance, connection. You are not just a survivor of grace, you are a carrier of it. Everywhere you go, you carry the evidence that love still wins. So go, live, laugh loudly, love foolishly, forgive quickly. Let your heart stay soft in a hard world. That's how you worship me now, not by kneeling in fear, but by rising in joy. And when you wonder again if you've lost me, remember, you can't lose what is inside you. You can't silence what was spoken into your very bones. You can't destroy what was designed to be eternal. You and I, we are not finished. You're not at the end of the story. You're at the part where you finally understand it. Now go write the rest of it, with trembling hands, with open eyes, with love so alive it feels impossible. And I'll be right beside you, whispering the same thing I've said from the beginning. I'm still here. Keep going. There's a truth you've been circling, one that both frightens and frees you, the truth that there is no after. There's only now. You keep waiting for the final chapter, the full clarity, the clean resolution where everything finally makes sense. But life was never meant to be wrapped in a bow. It was meant to be lived open. Every time you reach what you think is an ending, you're standing at another threshold. Every breath is both conclusion and beginning. Every heartbeat is both goodbye and hello. You keep asking me when it will all make sense. But what if it already does, not in the way of answers, but in the way of alignment? You think you need explanations, but explanations are just cages built for mystery. I didn't design you to understand everything. I designed you to trust me in the spaces that don't have definitions. You were made to dance with uncertainty, not conquer it. You were made to live in awe. You have spent years asking for a sign that you're where you're supposed to be. But the sign isn't outside you. It's in the peace that sneaks in when you stop forcing outcomes. It's in the way you've stopped running from quiet. It's in the laughter that doesn't need a reason. It's in the softness returning to your soul after years of bracing for impact. That's how you know you're here, you're becoming, you're exactly where I need you to be. You keep imagining I'm waiting for some version of you that's more faithful, more disciplined, more perfect. But I'm not waiting for a different you. I'm walking with this you, the one who doubts, who overthinks, who tries again anyway. You are not a project. You are a process I delight in. You are the proof that holiness can wear exhaustion and still shine. You are the intersection of fragility and divinity, and that's where I live, in the middle, in the mess, in the unfinished sentence that is your becoming. You've been told that surrender means giving up, but surrender isn't the end of striving, it's the beginning of seeing. When you stop fighting for control, you start noticing the beauty I've been weaving while you were too busy surviving. The conversations that healed you without you realizing. The coincidences that weren't coincidences. The timing you thought was delay, but was actually protection. You call it chance. I call it choreography. Do you know what I see when I look at you now? I see someone who's finally starting to remember where they came from, not in geography, but in spirit. You came from light. You were spoken into being by love. You were never meant to live small. You were meant to reflect the vastness that built you. And every time you love without guarantee, every time you forgive the unforgivable, every time you let yourself hope again, you are returning to that origin. You are returning to me. So stop treating peace as a destination. Peace is a companion. It walks beside you through chaos. It's not the absence of pain, it's the presence of purpose. It's not what happens when life calms down. It's what happens when you trust me even while it doesn't. You don't need to reach some enlightened version of yourself to deserve peace. You just need to stop running from where you already are. And if you ever forget all of this, if you ever fall back into old fears, old stories, old masks, know that it's okay. I'll be there again, same as before, patient, gentle, unmoving, whispering beneath the noise, start again, because there is no final failure. There is only return. Every time you lose yourself, you will find me waiting in the same place, not disappointed, just smiling, because I knew you'd come back. That's the secret ending no one tells you. There is no last chapter. There is only the infinite present. There is only love that doesn't run out. There is only me, still here, still speaking, still holding you through every rise and fall of your story. So when you wake tomorrow and think it's just another day, remember this. The ordinary is where the divine hides best. The next breath is a prayer. The next step is a miracle. And the next moment, the one you almost overlook, is the beginning of forever. You keep asking me if you've done enough, if you've prayed enough, forgiven enough, healed enough to deserve peace. But peace was never a prize, child. It's your inheritance. You were born into it before the world taught you fear. You didn't lose it because you failed. You only forgot where to listen. Peace isn't waiting for you at the end of your work. It's been walking beside you the whole time, quiet, patient, unoffended by your rushing. I've watched you build your worth on doing, on fixing, on giving until your hands shake. You call it responsibility. I call it forgetting. You've been taught that love must be earned, that rest must be justified, that joy must be postponed until everything is perfect. But I never built your soul to live on conditions. I built it to breathe. And breathing means receiving as much as giving. You think holiness means self-denial, but it means self-remembering. It means letting yourself feel my presence in the ordinary. It means tasting food slowly. It means letting sunlight touch your skin and realizing it's the same light that warmed creation's first dawn. It means laughing without needing a reason, forgiving without needing an apology, staying open even when it would be easier to close. The world keeps telling you that the goal is to win, to master, to conquer, to prove. But the kingdom I've been building inside you doesn't work like that. My kingdom isn't built on dominance, it's built on depth. It expands every time you listen instead of argue, every time you bless instead of curse, every time you choose softness instead of pride. You are not behind. You are just learning to measure time by eternity instead of clocks. Do you know what your life looks like from where I stand? A mosaic, nothing wasted, nothing out of place. Even the shards of what broke you are catching light. You see mess. I see pattern. You see delay. I see design. You see loss. I see space for grace to fill. Every time you thought you were being undone, I was rethreading the story, weaving redemption into the seams. You've spent years preparing for a version of yourself that's already here. The strength you wanted. You're living it every time you get up again. The faith you prayed for. It's in every breath that carries you through uncertainty. The purpose you begged me to reveal. You're already fulfilling it every time you love without condition. I know you still worry. I know there are nights when the fear returns, whispering that everything you've built could vanish. But listen, you've survived every ending you thought was final. You've outlived every storm you were sure would take you. You've proven that light doesn't just visit you, it lives in you. So now, I want you to stop striving and start noticing. Notice the quiet steadiness in your chest. That's me. Notice the stillness in the space between thoughts. That's me. Notice the way your eyes soften when you look at something beautiful. That's me too. I'm not out there waiting to be found. I'm here, woven through your being, whispering through your pulse, humming through your joy. And when the world asks you what you believe, tell them this. You believe in beginnings that don't need to be perfect. You believe in endings that lead back to light. You believe in a love that doesn't depend on behavior, but on belonging. You believe in me, not as a faraway deity, but as the breath in your lungs, the calm in your bones, the endless yes inside your spirit. Because this is what I've been trying to show you all along. You don't have to reach for heaven. You're already touching it every time you choose love. You don't have to look for the sacred. You are walking proof that the sacred never left. So stop worrying about the finish line. There isn't one. There's only expansion, the unfolding of light through every ordinary day. And as long as you keep choosing to stay open, as long as you keep saying yes to life, even trembling, even tired, you and I will keep creating eternity, one heartbeat at a time.